This is a dress that somebody just asked me to do. It can influence your homework, but it isn't a requirement. This one we're going to turn into a princess line with both the back and the front having the corner be where the dart is, and then the back is going to have a little cutout. I'm doing the fitted version. If you want yours to be less fitted, then you could just put in some 2-point curves. So that it would be less fitted, and then you could mirror that. So create, mirror, and then just mirror that line around that one and delete the others like we did on the first princess dress videos. You could also do something similar to that here, but you would want to make sure that you copied the reverse to this piece. Okay, I'm going to undo it and just do it really fitted, and you can play with the fitting part. And I'll probably add a little bit of flare to it, but if you want a straight one, you don't have to do that. Okay, so we're rotating this shoulder dart up to the shoulder area. Advanced dart rotate, choosing the dart, the rotation point location, and the hold line is always your center, front, or back, unless it's coming from the center, front, or back, and then you might want to use your grain line. The opening point this time is going to be right there in the corner. No internal lines are moving, so you'll say OK, and that's where it is. So I'm going to set that down. That's where the dart goes. I'm going to create my 2-point line from the corner to the bust point, so I have a reference location and another one right there. And on this particular one, we've got a V-neck happening, so I like the lines to be similar. So I'm going to create line, copy this line, and it's going to go on this piece, and then I'm just going to bring this over, and you can make the neckline lower if you want to, but that's where I'm going to put my neckline. I want it where it touches and comes down. And if you want it lower, just go ahead and make it lower, but I like the way that those two are parallel. In fact, I think if I wanted it lower, I would probably still copy that line, put it on this piece, and then widen the shoulder and make it low. Make the shoulder narrower and set it down, and then just modify, adjust that point and extend it. So you've got some options there for your neckline. If you do that, you also have to copy that distance on the back. So the simple way would just be to keep it right here. I'm going to go ahead and do this one just so you have more new information. So I'm going to delete this line. And then I'm going to split this line where that one crosses over, modify line, split, and I'm going to measure that distance, but I'm not close enough, am I? I should have zoomed in. So split here, and I'm going to combine that back clockwise and in order. Have you got that memorized yet? Okay. So I'm going to modify a single point, pick that up and move it over to that line. And I'm going to move this one over to this line. So I could trace that front off now. Choose the length that I want for this skirt. In fact, I'm going to shorten this 4 inches. Modify line. No. Create line, offset even. And switch to value. And say -4. Okay. So I've done things to that one, and I'm going to save it and move it out of the way. Oh, but I was going to measure that line. Verify line length, touch both of those, say OK. Now I can move it out of the way. Okay, rotating a shoulder dart to the corner is a little trickier. If I were using paper, I would actually cut this down to here and rotate it from here. So instead of choosing the end of the dart as a rotation location, I'm going to choose this spot, and if it doesn't look right when we're through, I'll change my mind. Advanced. Manipulate, rotate, select the dart. Rotation point location, typically I would put it here or here, but I'm going to change it to here so that it actually blends in with the rest of the line. The hold line is the center back, the opening point is the corner. No internal lines are moving, so I'll just say OK. Well, I could do it with that, but is that what I had in mind? I'm going to undo it and look at it the other way. Advanced, select the dart, the rotation point location, the hold line, and the opening point is the corner. No inner. Alright. So I actually think that's going to be easier to work with. So I'm going to leave it there. Because I'm not going to leave it exactly where it is. I just need to have that opening space, and I need to have this tapered back in by this location. So create 2-point curve. I'm going to start here in the corner, and I can switch to cursor. I can curve it a little bit more, but if I curve this a little bit more, I also have to curve that a little bit more. So I want it to blend by the time it gets to here. And I'm looking at the picture, and I'm probably going to be changing my mind. If I do that on this line, I'm going to copy that line. So we'll finish this thought. Create line, copy. Choose this line to copy. Put it on this piece. Say cancel. And then choose a line to modify, rotate. Choose a line to rotate. And I'm going to rotate at that end. And I'm going to move it so that it's just like that, so that the lines match. So I might not want to leave it that wide at the bottom. But that would give me an overlap area. okay, we'll do it this way instead. Modify line, move, select the line to move, and I'm going to set it down right there on the corner, and then I'm going to rotate it. Modify line, rotate. And I could have done set rotate and put it there on that corner. I'm going to rotate around the corner, and I'm going to look at where this point is, and I want this to overlap at a similar distance. So that I am happy with. I would clip that off. Modify line, clip. I want to keep this line until it runs into this one. So then they share a common line. So that could be a way to do this through the corner. But I have my corner amount established. I'm going to delete some of those lines because I don't need them. Oh, I'm clipping. Ah, Louise. Modify line. Delete. No. Delete. Line. So I have my dart. This is the amount that it's going to be open. That's roughly where it goes. And I'm looking at my picture, and I don't know whether this picture was done really carefully or not. The dart that's going to fit this the best is the one that retains a similar location right here in the end, because that's your shoulder break point. That's where the apex of your upper shoulder blade needs to be. But in this picture, we're going to move it down a little bit. It might not fit quite the same, but it'll be okay. So I'm going to try creating a 2-point curve more like the picture that I'm looking at. So is that gonna work? And sometimes when you've drawn a picture and you know what you think you want, sometimes when you're getting into the fitting part, you make a few adjustments. So I like that. And I'm going to copy that line. Yeah, that will work. Create line copy. So I'm copying this one. I'm going to put it back on the same piece, and I'm going to set it down. I'm going to have to move it, so I'm just going to set it near where I want it to be. And zoom in really tight. Modify line, move. Pick up the line, say OK. Oh, well. Pick up the line, say OK, and set it down right there on the corner. Okay. So now I'm going to rotate that back around until it joins that line over here. Modify line, rotate. rotate around that end. And again, we're thinking about how long this line goes down, so we want it kind of to rotate it around here. And it really needs to end about there. So I'm going to be cutting out too much right there. And I can't do that. So I'm going to try again and join with that line and blend it right there. And I feel pretty good about that. So I'm going to delete this line. But that's a design choice that you have to play with. So I'm going to move this single point just so that's less distracting. And I'll just kind of line it up with those two. So you can see it's not going exactly where it needs to go, but it's close enough that it will probably do the job okay. And this is blending in to the waistline. Now I've got another design line. This is a little bit of a brain teaser for me. We've got a cutout happening in here that's blending from that one, and this line isn't touching over there anymore. And we've got a yoke that's coming across about this level and then blending down in. And I almost want to see both sides of it, so I'm going to modify the piece and mirror it just so that I can draw the design lines on, because I should have done that first. But I have the end of this line that's going to be kind of right there, and then this is going to blend in with that. That's not too bad. And then, so this is all still going to be gone. That's just going to be tilted a little bit more. And then there's I want to join it with the point. But I need to decide how wide that is. So I've got a straight line coming across roughly right here, and then and this line is a little narrower than that one, so I can actually move that dart a little more crooked and do that. And this line may or may not be curved. So sometimes you have to make decisions for fit based on your design has to change a little bit to go with the fit. But if I wanted to, I could take this measurement right here. Let's see, verify straight. If I measure from here to here, that's 1.5 inches. So that would put me right here. So if I use this line instead of this one, except that's going to affect where this dart is too. So if I use this line, I have to move this dart over with it. And you certainly can do that, but it doesn't look that way in the picture. Yeah, it doesn't look that way in the picture. But I could have this line here and this curved line come into here and move that over if I wanted to. But I'm going to back up because she didn't do one that was that difficult. And I'm tempted to turn it off and start over, but I'm not going to. Because I never know what direction you're going to go. So create 2-point curve. And this line could come right here and blend back in. And it's easier to think this through without the dart on it, so I'm more relying on the other side. And then the whole dart situation is separate. That's going to be awfully difficult to sew if you do it that way, but that is the way the picture is. And another 2-point curve. So okay. This would be cut out. So just for fun, I'm going to do it a couple ways. I'm going to create piece trace this side. And I know I need to shorten it 4 inches too. And I probably need to go in and split that line. So I'll do that now. Modify line split. Right here and right here. Create piece trace. And I want to be able to use some of these lines. So I'll have to just mirror them over there. Okay, so that is option 1. So if I end up going with the design line that I'm looking at, and I mirror those lines onto that piece. So create line, mirror. I want to mirror all of those. Say okay, mirror around this line. Okay, now they're where they belong. Then that does look more like the drawing, but I'm going to change this line so that it comes over here. This line so that it comes over here too. Modify line swap. Clockwise and in order. Okay, so that's my design line, and now I need to put in my fit stuff. And that actually looks like it will fit. So I'm going to trace off my separate pieces. Create piece trace. This is a piece. No. And so that's that's the shoulder. And oh, horizontal line all the way to the bottom. Trace, not that peak line, that one. So I'm outlining to not include the dart, and that's my side back. And this is my center back. That was supposed to be CB. Okay. So for this version, that's my map, and then those pieces sew together, and you'd want to have a notch where these come together and where those come together. And you can go to the Princess Dress to see how you would add flare to it if you wanted to add flare. And for this one, the reason I shortened it 4 inches, I'll go ahead and finish that. Create line offset even. I can do them both at the same time. And I'll switch to value and say -4. Okay, so I can swap those. Modify line swap. dotted for solid. So if you wanted to have a little ruffle around the bottom of the dress, all you would need to do would be to measure the bottom of the dress, and the total right now is, I can get those to add up too, I think. Do I remember how? I think that's a whole nother video. Okay. Calculator. 5.569 plus 3.311 plus 9.395 equals 18.25 times 2 equals 36.5 around the bottom, and your ruffle can be anywhere between 1.5 and 2 times. So if I make it the biggest, then I would times that by 2 as well, so it would have gathers. That would be 73 inches by 4 plus hems and seams. So I'm just going to do 73 by 4, and you can decide about your hem and seam. So for that, I would go up to create rectangle and choose a corner and come up to my X, and you can decide which grain direction you want it to be, but well, that didn't work because I didn't add both. 4 by 72. And there's that piece. But in a manufacturing setting, you're probably going to turn it on its side so it can be cut all in one piece. If you want to, you can cut it on the lengthwise grain, or you can cut it in half and keep it on the... I meant the opposite of what I said. Ruffle. And say, okay, so all of those pieces would be added to the model. But I think I'm going to rotate that. Modify piece, rotate 90 degrees clockwise. Okay. Okay. And then realign grain and choose the grain line. There we go. So I would come up and do save. All of those pieces and say OK. And send them to the menu. But I'm going to create a model first, so create, edit, model, add pieces. Corner, shoulder, princess with cutout. And you probably don't want to make your model names that long. And of course, I didn't put my name on it. I'll shorten that. Okay. Map, pieces, and ruffle. There they are. Okay, so if that's all you... Oh, we need to do the front too, don't we? I need to delete that line. So this is going to be okay to sew, and that means the cutout isn't going to be as big across the back. And I think what I was aiming for the first time was for the cutout to be the whole width between the darts, and that's really not what we want. So it works out better if you draw your design lines on before you go and try and do all of your fitting stuff. But I need to trace off my front, and I think that's pretty close to finished. Create piece trace. Oh, I didn't fix my back neck. I got that. We might need to blend a bit of a curve right there. Actually, here, here, and here. But I will let you take care of that. Piece create trace. Well, that might take some work. Yeah, that's why on the one that we did before I split the dart. So I'm going to come in and do that here. So that line is lining up with it okay. It's just that dart that needs to split. Modify line. Split the dart. And I'm going to also split this one so we don't have to come all the way up. Okay. Create piece trace. Again, it's normal to have to do things more than once. It's like playing a game against the computer, and it's your opponent. And if you just think of it that way, it's less annoying. Okay, did we get it? We did. So if you just think of it as the great chess game against the computer, it's more fun than side front. Modify line, move. It just really bugs me when those are out there. Create line 2-point curve. Blend that a little bit and then split and swap. And make sure that's a nice smooth curve too. And split and swap. Make sure that you've got no sharp angles. If you're not going to add flare, last time I added flare, but if you're not going to add flare, then you want to blend this one out into a slight curve as well. And if you do that before you trace it off, you can mirror the line over there. No sharp angles, both sides. So going to save this as a map. And this as a map. Okay, and then I'll just add the rest of those to the model. File, create, edit model, add pieces, choose my model, and add everything that isn't already in there. And there they are. Oh, I did a straight ruffle, but what if you want a curved fluttery ruffle that doesn't have gathers, which is more like what the picture looks like? And I can, we wanted 36.5 around the bottom, didn't we? Well, it would be easier if I measured that one, wouldn't it? Ah. Oh, well, no. It would be 8.881 plus 9.396. Don't measure the same one twice. 9.396 plus 8.881 equals times 2. 36.5, same as before. We'll call it 36 5/8. Okay. I did hear that, 36 5/8. So if I want to do create a piece, you actually can do a ruffle. And, oh. Okay. I would need to cut that piece in half. But we'll pretend it has gathers on it. You can do this without gathers. Okay, select the begin or end of the slash line point as a hold line. Okay. The internal lines to move, there are none. And the distance between the spirals. Let's say we want evenly perpendicular. Say okay. So this piece coiled up into that, and you could cut that out as a ruffle. Now you probably noticed that I didn't enter that number like I should have. If I had put in, so here we have a spiral that you could just cut out and so on. But there's no room for seam allowance. So I'm going to cancel that one. Okay, well, I guess it's a separate piece. So this one has no seam allowance. If I do that again and go with the ruffle and make my interior diameter 2 and my distance between the spirals, if you make it 0.5, then you've got room for 1/4 of an inch seam allowance in there. You can make it 1, so you've got 1/2 an inch seam allowance. So my pivot line is this one, and my end point, and say okay. And that time I did proportional. So now there's room for seam allowance in it. And we have 3 options. So I'm going to add those 2 to the model too. And if you wanted to, you could slash and spread and do it on your own so that, well, I'll come back to that when I'm thinking. Okay, so that's going to give you a lot more spirally tight curl at one end more than the other. And if that's okay with you, that's fine. This is something you also might want to use as a decorative neck ruffle. But if you want it to be an even spiral, it didn't give you the option for that. It doesn't give you the option for choosing a center instead. So if you were really feeling picky and you could use a version of a circle skirt and then just trim it from the circle skirt. So you could say that you want your waist to be, I'll give it a ½ inch extra and I'll say 37 because that would go around it, and your length would be 4. And so this would actually go around the hem and be a ruffle, and if you wanted it to be all one piece instead of in sections, then you could modify piece mirror and mirror it twice. Come on. Have to move this one out of the way. Why does it not like that piece? Did I not give it a name? It doesn't like that poor little piece. Okay, but if I was actually doing that, especially if I were doing it for the cutter, I would offset, and maybe that's why this isn't working. I would offset that line just a tiny bit so that you can cut into it and cut around. And you are smart enough to know that, but the cutter wouldn't be. Modify, line, combine. That is probably the problem. And delete. Okay, modify mirror. That piece. Okay, so now there's a little space in between. So if you were doing that, I gave it a ½ inch extra, so if you just used a tiny seam, that would be okay. But if not, you'd want to up the size so that you had a big enough circle to include seam allowance. So that piece would also work to go around the bottom. Okay. Well, that was fun. I like it when you send me things to do. That's a good example of a fitted princess line with a ruffle skirt.